this with a great deal more insight and probably more concisely than I'm about to when we get on TV in a little while. But the first half was Bruce Arians' offense, and the second half was Tom Brady's offense. Because in the first half, they go in there with their plan, and it stinks. And then when they're way behind, and it's like, Tom, just go out there and find the open guy and make stuff happen, and all of a sudden they look a lot better. And so when Bruce Arians says, if we can do it for 30 minutes, why can't we do it for 60? He really needs to ask himself that question. He seems to know less about his own team based upon the questions he tends to ask in press conferences. He asks more questions in press conferences than the reporters. The reality of it is that when everything was done, when they were down, and they Brady, just go out there and find a way to win us the game. He threw for 400 yards. So that to me, I think, is the answer to the question. But are they the team that you trust? Absolutely not. I can't believe I'm saying this, but right now, based upon the path, I think the team that if I had to pick one in the NFC, I would pick Green Bay, which I have been their biggest critic all along, and I still can't believe that they drafted a scout team quarterback with their first pick last year. But at this point, considering it's going to be -10 at Lambeau Field in January, and Aaron Rodgers seems to love that, who do you see going in there and beating them? I think right now, if I had to bet on the NFC team in the Super Bowl, I think I would bet on the Packers.
And they can solidify themselves. They got the Titans, who have a terrible defense on Sunday Night Football. I know Rodgers wasn't happy with their work on Saturday, but if they can click the way they're used to clicking, you get that putrid defense. Then you get the Bears to close out the season on January 3rd. You're already in pole position for the top spot. Home field doesn't have anything to do with fans, but to your point, do you want to go to Green Bay? Do you want to go to Orchard Park if you're Sean McVay or if you're Tom Brady and you're a warm weather team? It's fascinating to think about. Mike Greenberg giving us the Straight Talk, brought to you by Straight Talk Wireless. No contract, no compromise. We'll see you on TV with RC and the gang in 31 minutes. Really appreciate it, Mike.
Yeah, my pleasure. I like it in here. This is my first time on. Every time I've been with you guys, I've been on our set across the hall. It's very nice in here. I like what you've done with the place.
Appreciate it. And one more note with Mike, beginning Tuesday, January 5th, Mike begins his new show, Greeny, immediately following our show on ESPN Radio. Greeny taking you inside the stories of the day as only he can, the A-list newsmakers that you'd expect Mike to get, and he'll interact with you every single weekday. So from Keyshawn, J. Will, and Zubin, right into Greeny, weekday mornings right here on ESPN Radio when the calendar turns on January 5th.
I like that. You did it just the way I wrote it. That's very good.
I did it verbatim. I'm gonna modify the words here and say we'll go Chiefs-Saints discussion. Life said something negative, and that's the way you can really tell he's upset. We have our resident Jet fan, Mike Greenberg, joining us this morning. Mike, the big question, of course, is whether this win turned out to be a loss. And I want to just set this up by saying you're a lifelong Jet fan, and we all have our teams that were DNA dyed in the wool with, and you come up with that team, and you come up with your interest because of a helmet, a jersey, a player, your dad liked that team. You think about all those things way before you get to be a more sophisticated fan and learn about dead money and the cap and the draft. So that said, just from an intrinsic standpoint, just stepping back with your Jets fandom, we'll get into the future of the Jets, what it means, Darnold's future. Just from a simple fan perspective, put yourself back at his 8-year-old Mike Greenberg. Were you happy to see what happened yesterday?
No, not at all.
I tried.
I'd like to think that even at 8 years old, I would have understood that was a devastating win. And let me make it clear, I feel good for the players. And I give them a lot of credit. That's 2 weeks out of the last 3. They were the better team on the field. They should have beaten the Raiders, obviously. We all remember what happened there. So in a completely lost season, when you could easily have packed it in, 2 out of 3 weeks, they were the better team. This is a team that now, within the second consecutive week, they had a 3,000-mile trip out to the West Coast. They'd just been in Seattle the week before. Now they go out to L.A. and play this game. It was a game they absolutely should have gotten shellacked. So for them to have risen up and been the better team on the field yesterday definitively, I give them a lot of credit. The players, a lot of credit, and I'm happy for them. They will not have to suffer the indignity of an 0-16 season. That said, obviously, for the franchise, it's devastating. The only thing the New York Jets had going for them, they had one thing going for them, and that is they were in position to get Trevor Lawrence, who everyone says is the next coming of insert whatever name you want, Elway, Luck, or whatever other you want to put in there. They are no longer that. So now they literally have nothing. They are the worst. I mean, and Bill Barnwell said it last week. If they don't get the first pick, they're the least attractive coaching job that will become available this offseason, and I think that's right. So I feel great for the players, but for the organization, nothing worse than this could possibly have happened.
So, if things stay status quo and the Jacksonville Jaguars don't win a game, the Jets end up with the second overall pick, what should they do?
Well, that's really the big question here is, did Sam Darnold yesterday become the Jets quarterback for the next 2 years? They can pick up his fifth-year option, and they don't have to commit to him beyond that. So he would be their quarterback then for the next 2 years. What a good organization would do is they would find a coach and they would let the coach make that decision. And that coach would be working hand in hand with the general manager. In a perfect world, those two every now and again would actually be hired at the same time. So in theory, they have some unison in what they are doing, as opposed to the rare and delicate genius that is Christopher Johnson, who obviously sees a different way of doing things. So what I think will happen is the Jets will make that decision and then tell the coach who the quarterback is going to be, which is exactly the opposite of the way you should do that. I would love to see, well, the question is, has Justin Fields, and he will have at least one more opportunity, if not two, to show the world how good he is. They'll play Clemson in the semifinals, and if they find a way to win that, then maybe he gets a shot at Bama. Is Justin Fields the kind of player that you get a king's ransom for the number 2 pick? You'll get a king's ransom for number 1. Mm-hmm. Would you get a king's ransom trading away the number 2 pick?
See, I think that's what the decision hinges on, the compensation that the Jets could actually get with the number 2 pick. Because Todd McShay, Mel Kiper, they both think that Trevor Lawrence and Justin Fields are going to go 1-2.
Right.
So if you're the Jets and you're at number 2 and you're convinced that Sam Darnold is going to be your guy, at least for the next couple of years, then I think that's really where you have a choice to make. But I'm in agreement with you that the head coach should be the one to make that decision. But I feel bad for all the Jets fans because I think they're in a glass case of emotions, to steal a phrase from Ron Burgundy from Anchorman, just because of, you're in this position where you're rooting for your team because you don't want to see them go winless, but you're rooting against your team because you know what's at stake in a generational talent in Trevor Lawrence.
Now, let me just clarify one quick thing. No Jet fan is happy at all today that they didn't go winless. Not going winless was not, there was no...
I think Evan would have something to say about that.
Really? I would not have... Look, at the end of the day, there's only one Trevor Lawrence. And if he's really that good, I mean, it would at least have been something to be excited about. If you are rooting for this franchise, which is so dysfunctional, the ownership is so totally out to lunch, that at least there would have been something to feel good about. Now there's literally nothing to feel good about. There is nothing better about being 1-15 and having the second pick than being 0-16 and having the first pick.
There's no doubt about it. Apparently the ownership is out to lunch in the United Kingdom, though that might be changing from time to time. We should mention here, over the last few weeks, when we've had Mel and Todd on, our draft experts, everybody has said there's been, a negligible difference between Trevor Lawrence and Justin Fields. But over the last few games, especially since Lawrence's return from COVID and the way that Ohio State has struggled, quote unquote, relatively speaking, including against Mike's alma mater over the weekend, that gap has seemed to widen a bit. So let me ask you, moving forward, whether it's 1-2 Lawrence, Fields, Fields, Lawrence, Jets, Jags, Jags, Jets, you're looking at a situation where the Jags haven't won since week 1. The Jets finally won yesterday. Both coaches are on scalding hot seats and are unlikely to return. The Jets do have a little stability in the front office because you can't pin all this on Joe Douglas, while the Jags have been a revolving door in the front office. Neither situation is optimal, but which right now, like if you're Trevor Lawrence saying, all right, I'm not going to pull an Elway, I'm not going to pull an Eli Manning, I'm going to go to the team that drafts me at number 1. Which team should he hope that is? Well,
I'll start by saying it's going to be Jacksonville. Jacksonville wouldn't win another game. Under these circumstances, they're not winning another game. You're out of your mind. The Jets just handed them the gift of all gifts as an organization. They'll bench everybody before they'll win another game. I think we were just talking about this during the break, Zubin, and it's an excellent question. What the Jets have going for you, if you're Trevor Lawrence, is that at least it is New York. I mean, you get to go to the New York market. You get a chance to be the savior. Just look at ESPN. Like, for however much the Jets have not been winning, half of our lineup are former Jets. There are days when on my show I've got Mike Tannenbaum, Rex Ryan, and Mark Sanchez all at the same time.
Add Bart in there.
And Bart Scott. What am I talking about? I mean, you know what I mean? So, there is a value in going to New York. And if you should ever figure out a way to resurrect that franchise and be the quarterback who leads them for the first time look at the celebrity that Joe Namath remains half a century after after winning a Super Bowl with the New York Jets. So I think that there would have been some value in that. The Jaguars, who knows? Chris was just saying to me during the break, he is from the southeastern part of the country. Trevor Lawrence is.
Georgia.
Maybe there's a familiarity there, a comfort level there. It's a little bit less spotlight. I mean, he will get a lot of attention either way, but it's a little bit less glaring of a spotlight, which might be an easier way to break in. So I don't think either